workshop on community gardens. And how many of you are experienced gardeners? No? Okay. How many of you love to garden? And how many have no gardening experience? That's okay. You don't have to have gardening experience to start a community garden. I love to work in my flower garden, but I have very little experience with gardening, doing a vegetable garden. But so how does someone with very little experience in gardening get involved in a community garden? Well, it started in 2016. I was on a committee at my church that sponsored a Syrian refugee family of 7. And we were responsible for the family for financially for 1 year. But at the end of the year, the members, the Syrian of the Syrian family, they were still enrolled in their ESL classes, and they could only work part-time. Therefore, they sometimes had to rely on the St. Vincent de Paul food bank. Oh, by the way, that was our family right there. I volunteer once a week at the St. Vincent de Paul food bank in Peterborough, and I noticed that the Syrians that came to the food bank often asked for fresh produce. This is a photo that one of the family members showed me. It's of their garden in Syria. She told me that they had a lot of fruit trees. The father of our family also had a bee hive, so they were serious gardeners. Here's what now, you know the expression, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, and teach him how to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. And I would also add, give him the fishing rod and a place to fish. Well, that proverb got me thinking. This is the apartment building where our family lives, and there were about, back when we started the garden, there were about 10 other families, Syrian families in that building. In that neighborhood, there are 4 other buildings. And many of the tenants are struggling to make ends meet. So this is an empty lot beside the building, and as I was eyeing the lot for a possible location for a community garden, someone else was checking out the lot for the same reason. So we got together, we went to the superintendent of the building, and the 3 of us got the ball rolling. So that's how it started for us. Now, when we envisioned starting a community garden, we had hoped that it would be a place where people could grow fresh produce. That was our main goal, you know, so that they would have to rely less on the food bank. But wow, it became much more than that. The garden was also used for impromptu gatherings where people met their neighbors. And I just showed up one day, and there was a little section near the garden where their lawn chairs appeared and a garden swing. We certainly hadn't planned that, but the gardeners decided that they needed a gathering place just to socialize. At any given night, you could see families working in their garden. Some were, sitting off to the side chatting, and you could hear various languages. The kids were playing, and you could see the young people helping the older people, the more experienced gardeners helping the less experienced gardeners. These are the 2 youngest members of our Syrian family, so I stopped them from playing just long enough to take these photos. Now, before I go any further, I have to mention an organization that helped us tremendously in Peterborough. We were so fortunate. The organization is called Nourish, and Most of the information for this workshop came from their website. Now, it's an organization that helps neighborhoods in Peterborough and Haliburton, in the Peterborough and Haliburton areas, with community gardens, so that everyone has access to healthy food. Nourish also offers, they have another location, or sorry, they have a central location where they offer cooking classes, community meals, they offer supermarket tours, farmers market tours, peer advocacy training. When you go on their website, you'll see all kinds of workshops on advocacy training. And they bring in a lot of experts that talk about, you know, issues related to poverty and health and food insecurity. It's led by the YWCA, and in fact their office is in that building. And they're also joined by other organizations in the city, such as the Health Unit, the city. There are a lot of local chefs and farmers that are involved, and community food advocates, the school board, and so on. They manage about 47 community gardens in Peterborough, and it's overseen by a coordinator. Every year they keep adding more gardens, so it's becoming very popular in Peterborough. The coordinator's name is Jill, and she was the one that helped us get started. Also, the gardens are on city, provincial, federal, church and workplace sites. Ours was on city property. Now, I'm just going to show you a few gardens that we have throughout the city. This is a rooftop garden at the Ministry of Natural Resources building. It's on top of their underground parking lot. So a group of workers there decided that they wanted to start a garden. Part of the garden is also used by seed collectors in Peterborough. We have a group called the Seed Collectors, and they have plots all over the city where they grow produce to collect the seeds. And then they grow plants, and then they share those plants with people who maintain the community gardens. Now, does anybody know what plant that is? Experienced gardeners, anybody? You need a paintbrush? Give up?
Yes.
It's quinoa.
Oh.
Yeah. This is, these are students harvesting on the roof of the Environmental Science Building at Trent University. This is Bonacore Community Garden. It's one of the more established community gardens in Peterborough, and you can tell because they've got a beautiful sign, and they've got a couple of sheds, and they've got a sun shelter, so this garden's been around for a long time. I wanted to show this garden because of the raised beds. So this happens sometimes when the soil, like you might have a lot, but the soil isn't good enough. It could be too rocky, too sandy, whatever. So therefore you could have these raised beds and then just put a mixture of compost and soil, and you can have gardens there. This is our garden last year. CBC came and did a story about our garden, and if you go on Google, on the CBC website, interview with Syrian refugees at Tallwood Community Garden, you'll see the interview. But this garden isn't as established as the Bonacore garden, but it's certainly getting there. You know, every year it keeps growing, and we keep adding to it. It's looking really good. I was there in the spring, and I was just amazed at how lush it looked. Now, in Peterborough, these are beehives at the Ecology Garden, and it's run by an organization called Peterborough Green Up. It's a park where you can explore nature, and they showcase an array of gardens for the public and school groups. And they offer workshops for the community. They sell compost, trees and plants. So this is a very popular garden. Are there any questions so far? I might be speaking too fast. No? Okay. So can you think of some benefits of having a community garden? Yes?
Well, there's plenty of them, really. I mean, the fact that families are outdoors, it's a
Yep.
healthy option. Gives you some physical activity
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
Not to mention that you have fresh produce that hasn't been affected by chemicals. Hopefully they're just doing it all naturally.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the bonding, the community grouping of people.
Yeah,
And the whole satisfaction of doing it for yourself.
exactly. Yes. Yep. Yep. There's a lot of sharing that goes on because they have to share the tools. You know. They learn where their food comes from, especially the young kids. Yes?
The tools, the funding, where is that?
I'm going to talk about that
Oh,
later.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. But it's certainly the security of knowing that, you know, at the end of the growing season, you're going to have food and maybe even enough to do some canning, and it'll last you, you know, throughout the winter. That's really important, and you know, hopefully they may not have to rely on the food bank as much. Yeah, certainly there's a lot of interaction that goes on. And there's also the transformation of a green space. I mean, you saw what the lot looked like before. It was just a plain, like the city would come and mow the grass, and that's it. There was nothing there. People walk their dogs there, so you had to be careful. There was a lot of dog poop. So now, you know, it's been transformed into a beautiful area.
Is there any interaction between the Syrian families and the locals?
Yes, yes, because the locals, the other people in the buildings want to know so much about their culture, and yeah, I see them interacting all the time. And you know, the Syrians are, like I said, they're really good gardeners, and you know, sometimes I've seen some of their locals go up to them and say, well, what plant is that? And they plant a lot of eggplant because that's used in a lot of their traditional dishes. And just sometimes their methods of gardening might be a little different. And so you know, some people will walk over to the plots and they'll ask them questions. And so there's a lot of mingling. Yeah.
Is there any risk of the city using that lot for something else? Why was it just sitting vacant? It's not up for, they were planning to build anything there?
No, they weren't.
Is it ground land?
No. We were very fortunate when the city gave us permission to use that space. So, oh wait, maybe I should back up a little bit. Okay, so we talked about the benefits. I want to share some, like we asked that question to the Tallwood gardeners, you know, what are the benefits, do you think, of starting a community garden? I just want to read some of their answers. It fights mental health like depression. It's nice meeting people. It's therapeutic. I love that everyone helped each other. It's fun playing in the dirt. Now that answer came from the coordinator. She was there every time I would drop by. It didn't matter morning, noon, or evening. She was out there